listening to Superpower Creatives on the Superpower Up podcast. The show that sparks the superpowers of musicians and artists to ignite change.
All the little men, will they get the chance to come back?
Hello, this is David Delmar, your host of Superpower Creatives, and you're listening to our episode, Sing, Be Confident, Be You. I believe everyone is a creator, and it's this inherent birthright that's the source of our superpowers. Stepping into this personal authority is scary, though. This show celebrates creatives that stay true to who they really are, making a living using their creative superpowers. The stories they share will excite and inspire listeners to do the same, making positive change in the world. I'm truly filled with joy to welcome our guest for today's show. He's such an exceptional person with vast knowledge and experiences, someone coaching people to improve their life and their singing. I really feel the audience is going to receive a great amount of value that's going to benefit and improve their lives and their singing. Roger always over-delivers, so you can expect that today. Well, as we speak, Roger Burnley has been a coach for more than 33 years. His career started as a life counselor, then choosing to leave that arena early, feeling he needed to know and experience more to add value and truly excel his work. Always putting the client first, he wanted to be prepared, knowing what he was offering was helpful and meaningful to others. Roger always knew he was a teacher at heart, but he had to begin with something he had experience with. So he pursued his love of performing and singing, which led to coaching, singing, and performance. He knew that the experience he gained from years of working with thousands of artists would well prepare him for any kind of field. In the meantime, his own life had many ups and downs. He was able to traverse all of them. He often says he experienced an inordinate amount of hardships and difficulties for the express purpose of bringing his tools and techniques for overcoming them to others. Years ago, Roger began his empowerment life coaching practice. His goal is to guide others to find ways to move beyond any difficulties and experience, to have that freedom he found in his life, to be fully living it. To fulfill his dream, he created an online program, Overcoming Everything, a self-guide to empowerment. During his work, he discovered what he knew had held him back, but now could identify this same hindrance with so many of his clients. Fear. The book idea was now born and felt to him to be essential. Overcoming Fear, a guide to freedom. It's being released in February 2019, which is this month at the time of this recording, y'all. So you're going to get a chance to have that. Roger has devoted his life to coaching, writing, speaking, and creating products, all designed for the empowerment of others. His time is currently consumed with coaching, speaking engagements, and developing workshops that are designed to have participants discover what they can achieve and unleash to their greatest potential. He derives his passion and motivation from witnessing the success of others, for then he knows he is also experiencing that for himself. Roger, such amazing stuff. Thank you for being here today.
David, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I want to just thank you also for your powerful presence you bring to others. I've been watching you for a while now, and it's really, personally, it's a joy and a privilege to have you on the show today. And I've just seen the way you created change for my life, but the way you are able to help others to reach breakthroughs and make new discoveries that are changing their lives as well. So thank you for showing up in the world the way you do like that.
Great. Thank you. It was so fascinating listening to my biography there. And I know this show is about confidence and about singing and art and all of that. And I know that people would, listening to me, think, oh, well, maybe he was born with all of that and he's just had it. And I will tell you that was never the case, which I know that makes me the best person to talk about all of this. When you talk about, now I wasn't even in the beginning, I didn't know that I wanted to go into singing or music or entertaining or any of that. And I tell the story when I was 12 years old in grade school, we were getting ready for our graduation and we were singing. And so one of the teachers discovered that I could sing. I didn't know that. It wasn't something that I was kind of like figuring that I was going to do or want to do in my life.
Oh, wow.
So it was just kind of accidental that I said, oh, I guess I can do that. So let's just have fun with it. When I first started, it was just about having fun with it. I loved singing and I thought there's something here for me. But at the same time, I was terrified. I was terrified always. And then when I went into high school, I started forming these horrible ideas about myself because one of my instructors said, oh, we don't think your voice is quite good enough for the choir we want to put you in. And so when you hear those things, you start to embed them. You start to incorporate them into who you are. And that's what I lived with. And so I was always second guessing myself, but for some reason I kept going. I didn't know what it was or why I was doing it, but I knew that I had to. And it's only made sense later on in my life. And now I know that's why I'm doing the work that I do.
Well, I mean, that's such a unique way to hear about someone who, there's so many people that want to know how to sing and are able to learn from you. And you're like the accidental singer that has made this amazing career out of it, which I think is so profound and a really, really cool story that I did not know. I think that others will find that pretty interesting. Well, let me ask this, Roger. What is your creative superpower?
My creative superpower is being able to work with a client and really being able to immediately pinpoint what's getting in the way of them achieving whatever success they want to have in their life, whether it is in their career in terms of music or singing or performing, or their career in their life or whatever else they might be doing. Because I took so many different routes in my life in terms of figuring out where I wanted to go, it gave me this incredible ability to be able to see that immediately in other people. When I work with someone, what I'm always doing, I don't care what the element or what the particular area I might be working on with someone, it's like, what is the goal? Where are you trying to go? So that's what we figure out first. And a lot of times people don't know what that is, as I didn't for a long time. And there may be many different reasons for that. Maybe you think you're not capable, you don't have the talent or the ability, you can't do it, whatever it might be. Those things might be in the way. Or a lot of times, I was just doing a talk last night about this, a lot of times people are going after things that they really don't want to do. And maybe they're doing that because they think they have to, or their family told them, or the obligations that they think they have, or whatever it is. But regardless, it's about figuring out what is it that is about this person that makes them valuable. And I say that because I start with the premise that every single person is valuable. They were born with purpose and intention. They just most times have not figured out what that is. And a lot of times I think when I work with someone, even in my online program, I said we start off with purpose. And it's surprising how many times people don't feel that they have a purpose, they don't feel important in their lives, and so they're not really going for anything. And I'm here to tell you that everybody has that. When we start to uncover what's been going on with them throughout their lives, we find that purpose. It was the same whether I was working with someone with singing. And David, it's fascinating when we start with the singing. I have this thing that I've used forever. People want to question me on it, where I say anyone can learn to sing. That's been my deal.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, and I just know that that's absolutely true. But I think that same thing about people moving forward in terms of creating what they want in their lives as well. It's just about understanding what that is, recognizing and acknowledging the obstacles or challenges or blockages that might be in there, but then devising a way to move over those things, to start to move toward that goal, and then developing a plan where people can see, okay, this is where I'm going, and these are the steps that I'm taking. It makes it a lot less scary.
Well, and I mean, it's such a profound thing for, someone who, has that hunger for something that they are driving for, and just like having not that clear destination is such a challenging thing. And to be able to, quickly pinpoint, like you say, how that's looking from your point of perspective for the person, that they can start to see it in a way where they can have that clarity and those breakthroughs to start to have the confidence to really go after what they want, as opposed to, what somebody else is subconsciously maybe telling them.
Right.
I mean, that just, I can relate to that so much. Well, I mean, I want to get into that definitely a little bit more here, because this is amazing stuff. We're going to take a quick break, but I want to stay with you, Roger, on this and what you're sharing for the listeners to help them to find that breakthrough in their life, for them to feel an empowerment, strictly from just even hearing what it is you're sharing today. But before we do jump into the break, let's tell people where they can go to find out more about you.
They go to my website. It's rogerburnley.com, and it's ROGERBURNLEY.com.
Truly, truly awesome. All right, so we've been talking with Roger Burnley today about our episode, Sing, Be Confident, Be You. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue with Roger and absorb what he's sharing about empowerment, how you can have more of that in your life and career.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/the-net to learn more.
We're back. You're listening to Superpower Creatives, and today we're talking with Roger Burnley on our episode, Sing, Be Confident, Be You. So Roger, I'd love to jump right back into where we left off, and Tell me this. What is it that you might experience as a commonality for the hundreds and the thousands of people we've worked with? Is there one common sort of trait when someone's trying to explore and find, that purpose that you have sort of noticed that's sort of across the board something that everybody seems to run into?
Okay. Yes. And when we talk about, we use one common trait, and the one common trait is that they think limited. And we all do that. And it makes sense, because when we haven't experienced something, it's hard to sometimes imagine what that might be. It's hard to see ourselves in that particular position or doing that thing. If you're a singer or a performer, it's hard for you to imagine yourself on a big stage or a stadium doing a big concert, but it is possible. And that's the main thing. I was doing a talk yesterday on a group that I'm involved with, where we talk about Napoleon Hill and the book Think and Grow Rich. And so in that group, I was talking about one of the biggest things that I find that gets in our way and people aren't recognizing is using comparisons. And this is a trap, because think about it, when we're looking at anything, if we're looking at our favorite artist or singer or performer or writer or speaker or something, whatever it is that we're looking at, we will look at that person, we will emulate them, and we will think, wow, they're really great, and that's what I want to do. But at the same time, most times, because we have not experienced that, we're looking at ourselves and then labeling ourselves as not being quite capable, or we couldn't possibly do that, or why even try. And that's the place where so many people stop. They will look at, that great superstar singer and think, well, I could never possibly be that person. And yeah, not everybody is it. That doesn't mean that you can't go out and have a really successful life and career. So it's just that one little thing about not recognizing how we're constantly giving ourselves these limiting thoughts. And we do it from birth, basically, and because, we're born having to look up to the people who are raising us, whether it be our parents or guardians or whoever it might be, and then teachers. We go to school and we're being told everything. So we find it hard sometimes to find that sense of self. And that's really what I'm talking about, knowing that we're confident and capable.
Do you find that based on the person or the artist, their background, is there a certain amount of threshold that some can get to that point quicker than others? Does the story that they have in their head, the experiences they've had that they've grown up into, how much do you experience those affecting their ability to allow you to get them to that space, into that place, that destination? Is there anything you've noticed as far as the depths of someone's story and how much of it they believe or don't believe, or maybe they have a fixed mindset? What have you experienced in that sense of things?
I experienced that people have hypnotized themselves and they don't understand that. And so, yes, you're correct. We have to be affected by our upbringing, by our families, our country, our city, wherever we grew up. We are picking up things from our environment all the time. So we're going to be influenced by that. Now, when we have not formed independent thought, meaning that we haven't formed this system of belief in ourselves, or we start forming our own awareness of the world and how we want to live, then we start operating from all those other stuff. So, when you think about some of these sayings like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, that's true to a degree because the rich are always thinking that way because that's how they grew up. So that environment is kind of setting in. And then people who grew up without having very much, then they start to think they develop that kind of consciousness. Now, we know that can be changed because we see it all the time. We see people who have grown up really poor and become multimillionaires. So what is the key there? We've seen people who have had a lot of stuff at some point and grew up that way and then lose everything too. And so then when we break it down, we see it's always about how we are programming ourselves. And we have the ability to change that. And that's what I love working with people on, getting them to start to, most times we are not looking at how we're basically living or thinking about ourselves. And because sometimes it's uncomfortable. Socrates says, so the unexamined life is not worth living. And that's how I like to look at things. Let's look at what we're doing, why we're doing it. Is it making us happy? No? Okay, then what can we change? That's really what it is.
Well, that is it. And I mean, there's a certain amount of deniability, I suppose, that comes with that. But that's what you're there to help them to see that, to see that blind spot. And I mean, that's a powerful thing to have, someone to be able to do that for you, for someone who's not being able to see the things that may be obvious to, someone like yourself, but to them, it's like, it's right in front of their face and they can't see it. It's almost like it's invisible. How much of this kind of, how much of this sort of content and these kinds of experiences and the way you coach are you sharing in your book?
Quite a bit, actually. The book is real. This one book is, I figured there are going to be more that come eventually because I work on so many different subjects. But this one, I started with fear because I get really honest with this. I talk about all of the stuff and how my life was just controlled by fear. I mean, and most times I didn't even know that's what was going on, but it was absolutely what was stopping me from doing anything. I make a joke in the beginning of the book. I said, I wanted to write this book for a really long time, but there was one thing that was stopping me from doing it for all these years, and that was fear. That's why I started with that one. And because I have had all of those experiences, and a lot of them came from a whole bunch of stuff I went through in my life and hardships and all of that, as you mentioned in the bio. But moving through the fear, figuring out processes, and I put some of those in the book. I put in some of the things that I would do to kind of move through these. Now, because we all know that sometimes we get into these fearful places that we feel basically paralyzed and we can't do anything. And then we can move into depression. We can do all kinds of other things, starting from becoming really fearful. And so, but if we have the techniques and exercises or processes or whatever to use to start to move through that, we develop this skill and this ability to get through it a lot easier. I tell people, it's not that I never get afraid anymore, but I also know that I'm going to handle it and deal with it in a different way. And then I also like to get another aspect of what I do is to get people to understand that fear is not always a terrible thing. Because when you're willing to look at it and question yourself and ask yourself why you're afraid, then you can make some changes. You may find, well, I'm afraid of doing this because I don't want to be judged. Well, I don't want to live my life being afraid of being judged, so maybe I'm going to get over the fear and go out and do whatever that is. I'll tell you an interesting story. years ago, when I first started going out and performing, I knew that I needed to get on stage and get comfortable with being in this performance setting and being comfortable in front of an audience. But I was terrified to go out and do it. So
I can relate to that.
So what I decided to do was I found open mics or karaoke bars, but I would find them in places that were way far away from where I lived. So I'd have to drive there to go to perform. But I knew that that was a good thing because the chances of anyone being there who would know me were really, this wasn't going to happen.
That's commitment, Roger.
But it was the thing, that got me. And I knew I needed to do that. When I was a kid, a teenager, about 15, I had the opportunity to go backstage. This was when I lived in Chicago. I went backstage to a performance, a concert, because my classmate, his father was a disc jockey, and he could get us into all these places. So we're backstage, and we're watching these performers getting ready to go on to perform. And this was a long time ago. This guy's been gone for a long time, but his name was Jackie Wilson. But when I was a kid, he was pretty popular, and to my parents, he was a whole different generation. But anyway, and so I'm backstage and I'm watching this guy who's this, he's already pretty famous.
Yeah.
He's so nervous. He's jumping around. He's shaking his hands. He's doing all this stuff. I'm going, why is this man who's so round and why is he like that? And then the minute they called his name, he relaxed, he walked out, and he gave a brilliant performance. And then I realized, that was just his way of dealing with the fear. He figured out a way of dealing with his nerves, his anxiety about going on stage. And so that's what I had to do. And this was part of my process of moving through that.
Well, that story is such a revealing story because, I mean, all we see is the great performances, the human component,
right?
That part behind the curtain. What is so revealing, especially as the way you share it, is I think I know for myself, but for others hearing, that's got to be a relief to hear something like that because it's like, hey, you know what? Yeah, you know what? You're in a human body. You're having human emotions. Fear is one of those, but like how you choose to handle it will be the difference maker. And I mean, he found out a way to make it, and you found out a way to make it. So like others can do the same thing.
Exactly. I tell people, I say, I call myself, I'm an empowerment life coach. I like putting that out there it's about empowerment because I want people to be able to break through whatever is holding them back in their lives. That's what it's about. That is truly feeling like you can go out and do what you want to do. It takes time, it takes work and effort, but I know that it's possible.
Well, and it's just about really how much do you want what it is that's driving you. I mean, I guess that driving force inside has to be something so strong that, as they say in the industry, it's like if there's another thing you could be doing, you should go do that. I mean, there's so much elements of truth in that because you have to really have that inner sort of that inner picture, even though you may not understand what it looks like, that inner picture of what it could look like. And you need people along the way to help you to get there. It's not a solo project. You need so many people. And I'm sure you had so many people in your career that helped you to get to where you're at today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that you mentioned this. I told this story last night as well about that having the picture of what you want to be. That's something that was difficult for me for a long time. And it was probably difficult for a lot of people. And I was able to pinpoint why that was because when I was in school as a kid, I used to daydream a lot. I would Well, but I was told that was a bad thing.
Yeah,
I wasn't paying attention. And I thought, and so I stopped doing it. And so I stopped imagining. I stopped visualizing. I stopped doing all of those things because that's a waste of time. And I tell people now, no, that's the most valuable time you can possibly spend is imagining and seeing and visualizing who you want to be and start going for that.
Well, I mean, gosh, that had to have been crushing at such a young age when that was the thing that brought you bliss and the the outer circumstances are saying, we know that's a happy place for you, and it should be because it was for me too. But you know what? You can't go there anymore because you're not going to be whatever it is that, we say you should be in life. And how did you find your way back to being able to daydream, to bring that imagination component back into what it is that you were doing? How were you able to do that? How much time gap was there between that moment of when you decided to not do that anymore to when you decided, oh my gosh, that was, let's recorrect that now?
Yeah, I think I actually took a workshop. And I think that was probably the first time that I gave myself permission to do something a little bit different. And I think at the time I was in my mid-20s or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was an experiential workshop. I'd never done anything like this. This is weird, but it was the weekend that you go and sit in this. Some of you people probably have heard of, I think they're the new ones now. Oh wow! There's a huge one that's out there. We had one called Est, which was back a long time.
Oh yeah,
ago.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and then there's
there's
another one now, and I can't. I'm blanking on the name now, but one of the bigger ones. But anyway, there are groups like that. So I did one. This was a smaller group, but it was the same kind of premise. And so one of the things that they had us do at the end was just kind of do this timeline thing, and you sit down and you start writing out your timeline and really important events in your life and how they affected you. And I think that I came across that in my timeline during that whole process. I go, oh, that was a problem. And so then, and with the ideas and the concepts that I was learning in the workshop itself, I was brought back to, wait a minute, no, imagination is the most important thing. When I was speaking on the group last night and we were talking about Think and Grow Rich, and I told them to look at the book, and what Napoleon Hill does, the first thing that he talks about in the book is thoughts are things. And that's where it starts. And I said, that is the most important thing. The mindset that we carry or maintain is what starts to direct and create our lives.
Well, I mean, Einstein said it best too. He's like, "You're the greatest, the most powerful thing you have is your imagination." Right. That's proclaimed the smartest person. One of them certainly that's walked this great planet. And how did the group last night? How did they respond to what you were sharing from like Think and Grow Rich and some of the things you've shared today? What was some of the feedback that they were offering you from what you were sharing last night?
Basically, what they said, I think the most common comment was that they had never thought about that before. I was saying so many different things. We talked for quite a while. This whole thing, I was one of the coaches on there. There were three of us on there for this hour thing. And so, but I think probably the biggest thing is they had not thought about it that way. And that is what I do, because I'd like to offer people different perspectives. I say, first of all, when we understand that we experience everything in our lives through our perceptions, meaning how we choose to perceive things. There's no one way that we have to perceive anything. When we look at our world, our country as compared to other countries, they perceive things differently and all of that. So it becomes a very individual thing. So when we start to, like, for instance, one of the things that I think holds people back so much is when they've experienced a bunch of failure in their lives. And you think, I'm a horrible person, and I'm thinking, no. This is you've just learned so much. You've got a lot of wisdom now. So you have things to start to work with. And that's things that most people don't think about. And so I talked about this on the call. I said, what you should do is read some biographies of really, really successful people.
Right,
and see how many times they failed and how many times they had to keep getting up and keep going. You won't feel so like worthless or like, somehow you're on the wrong path.
It's like when you read that story and it's like, oh, wow, that person who everybody knows is like, Geez, I'm sure glad that I have going on what I do right now.
Right.
It's like, yeah, yes, you've got it good. It's like, until you get that sort of paradigm shift to see that other reflection of it,
Mhm.
You'll always be in that same thought of failure and all that. And it's like,
Mhm.
actually, failure is a very fortuitous sort of thing to happen. You have a lot of things you can go off of when you've got a lot of failure. You've
Exactly.
chosen to do a bunch of stuff, and wow, that's definitely the key to it too. Be okay to fail, and just look to see what sort of what opportunity to gain some wisdom from that is present. So, well, let me ask you this, Roger, before we close up. What are some other exciting things that you've got going on, or that are coming on the horizon?
Well, one thing that I have is I'm doing a little short program that I'm going to be putting out. And this is going to be on they're creating another website for this Napoleon Hill group that I spoke of. It's called the Elite Mastermind. And so in there, I'm creating a little short program that's going to be fun for people to use. And it's called How to Live an Empowered Life. And so it's just basically videos and things that people can watch, and then their exercises. And all the exercises are really just about asking certain questions. I find that when we are able to take the time, work on ourselves, give ourselves attention, sit down, maybe every day or in the morning or whenever it is,
Yes.
and work on these processes and say, okay, I have some that are so great. One is just, who am I? And I tell people, look, if you get up and ask that every day and then write about it, you'll say, oh, this is where I am now. Maybe this is who I want to be. And so maybe this is the next thing that I need to do. I mean, just little things like that, thinking about it and just understanding that, I might make a whole different decision today about who I want to be or what I want to accomplish because of what I've learned from the past or from, yesterday. So I might make a new decision today, and that's okay. Always choose from your place of awareness now, meaning what you've grown to be. And that's how we can kind of achieve that success in our lives.
That's a beautiful nugget for everybody to sort of go off of, for sure. Cause I make sure I scribbled all that down, cause that was gold. That's gold. That was gold, you might say. Well, this has just been a real honor to be with you in this time we've shared today. And once more, before we close out the show, let's remind listeners where they can go to find out more about you, Roger, and all these sort of exciting opportunities that you have for people.
Great. Thank you so much. Yes, they can go to my website, rogerburnley.com, ROGERBURNLEY. And on that site as well, there are links to my YouTube videos and other pages also.
Well, folks, check Roger out. He is one of the best around. Many people know this. So I want to thank you again, Roger, for joining me and being here. It's just been so much fun to co-create with you today in this space.
Great.
And and I want to, of course, thank the listeners as well. And until next time,
thank you, David.
Stay true and unveil your creative superpowers. Thank you, Roger.
Thanks.
I really don't know.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the superpower quiz today.
I get up and I show